You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Inside the Fox 59 CBS 4 podcast studio, welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. Alongside Mike Chappell and Matt Adams, I'm Dave Griffiths. We have made it back.
Game week.
NFL game
week.
Week
1, baby.
Let's go. As we tape this podcast on a Thursday, the NFL kicks off later tonight. In fact, the Colts will go on Sunday, hosting the reigning AFC South champion, Houston Texans, who earned that title by beating your Indianapolis Colts in Week 18 of the season right inside this building at Lucas Oil Stadium. Maybe some ghosts, some old skeletons in the closet to get rid of this week, Mike, but no doubt when the Colts players and coaches and front office and whomever looked at the schedule when it first came out, and you saw Houston Week 1, I'd imagine that is a game that everyone wanted to see on the schedule Week 1.
Unfinished business. You know, and again, as much, it's really funny how, and I always wonder how the narrative would have changed, if at all. But right now, Houston and Stroud, you know, of the quarterbacks who could threaten Mahomes, you know, there's 2 or 3, and then there's C.J. Stroud in Houston. I just go, and the Colts have been so much under the radar, which I understand from a league perspective. But 4th and 1, you know, at the 15-yard line with a minute to play, and you know, if you make that play and one more, you're AFC South champs. With Gardner Minshew, with Richardson missing 12 games.
Yep.
With Jonathan Taylor missing, half a dozen, maybe 7 or 8 because he missed 4 to start the season. Really 5. The Tennessee game, he was just out there. And then he missed 3 games with the thumb. How would people view the Texans, the Colts, the AFC South, if you finish the drive? Mm-hmm. I mean, I still think, and I still believe Houston is the team to beat, even if the Colts were the defending champs. I like what they've done. I like players they have at certain positions. But again, they came so close to doing something that no one expected. And from all the years I've done this year, I really like to see teams finish it when they get that close.
Yeah, it is amazing, Matt, that two teams' viewpoints across the league can vary so greatly when there was so little disparity between them last year. Now, to be fair, Texans go out and they're in the playoffs, and they're performing in the playoffs and doing well in the playoffs, and like C.J. Stroud has every reason to be viewed as a up-and-coming elite quarterback in the NFL. And Anthony Richardson, you kind of throw your hands up and say, I don't know. But
you
still,
think, but you don't know.
So that's probably the difference, I think, nationally,
right,
when people look at these two teams, and that's what's giving them the major view as the better team in this division.
You feel like, I mean, from the outside view, that Houston was already a good team, and they got better with some of the additions that they made. We'll talk about some of those later. With the Colts, you've just got that gigantic question mark at quarterback, where we've seen flashes, we've seen some things to get us really, really excited, but until that becomes a sustained trend for this team, you just don't know what you're going to get out of this Colts team. And then the rest of the team is a 9-8 team that was 1 win away from getting to the playoffs, and they thought that the roster was good enough that we're just going to kind of run it back, and we're going to hope that secondary that was young and really leaky last year is going to show leaps and bounds of, you know, progress this year. So it's a really interesting dichotomy between the two teams, and the Colts game is really not one. It's a 1 o'clock game. It's not one that's going to be shown a lot nationally. It's pretty much just in the Indy market and the Houston market. And you kind of do feel like with teams that were in the same division that had that big game last year that determined their playoff fate, that maybe get a little more prime spot so more fans could see that. But I guess the rest of the country does not care so much about the AFC South. We have learned.
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal. Like, you're not must-see TV until you prove that you're must-see TV. Like, with Anthony Richardson, does he have the potential to be must-see TV?
Absolutely.
Sure. But so did Jake Locker, for crying out loud.
Good point.
With the Tennessee Titans years ago. Like, when he came out, he was all the rage. This mobile quarterback with a rocket arm who could run like crazy. And he did not pan out. So as excited as you can and should be as a Colts fan to see what Anthony Richardson can do, there's no way you're going to get any national respect until something is actually done of significance on a football field.
Over a sustained time,
Yes.
over a month, over 2
Yes,
months.
Right.
exactly. Good point. So there's plenty that we'll get to over the next hour or so as we break down this game, but we will start in the Colts locker room. And we were saying that it's maybe a good thing, but also you could argue that it's a bad thing that the prime topic of discussion in the Colts locker room this week is the health of the kicker, Matt Gay. It's a good thing because, well, then there's a lot of other things that you think for sure that you know what you're going to get. But it's a bad thing because every time the kicker takes the field, there are points on the line. And we've seen in the past here in Indianapolis how a kicker that is struggling, whether it's with health or with anything, can do in the prospects of an otherwise good football team. Matt Gay has a sports hernia. Josh Downs also on the injury report, but we'll start with Matt Gay. Chap, he's not had a good preseason, and he would admit that, going just 1 of 4. But you would feel much more comfortable, I think, still going into the season with a veteran like Matt Gay as your kicker at this point, rather than an undrafted rookie in Spencer Schrader out of Notre Dame.
Well, can you imagine, again, at some point in the game, it's 4th and 4, and do you go for it or do you kick a 52-yard field goal? Mm-hmm. Well, with Matt Gay,
So there was no decision.
question.
you kick.
You kick it.
With Spencer Schrader, he was he kicked. He hit 2 field goals in the preseason, all 4 of his PATs. He was a 68% kicker in college.
68%.
I mean, 68%. So, and I asked him, I said, do you think the Colts and Shane Steichen has confidence? He said, well, they brought me back. Okay. But again, we talked to both kickers yesterday. We talked to Matt Gay, and he said, yeah, they had surgery, I assume last week. This happened a week after the Cincinnati game. And it came. We're thinking it came like the day, like August 27th or 28th. The cut day was the 27th.
right.
They cut Schrader, and there was no indication they were bringing him back. He said they didn't say, no, we're going to let you go, but we're going to bring you back. Because that tells me that the injury and the surgery happened either that day or the next day.
Right.
Because they bring Schrader back 2 days later on that Thursday. I was checking on, good old Google medical advice. You see varying things, but it looks like 4 to 6 weeks on a sports hernia.
Yikes.
And this is a kicker that you're going to put stress on your core. Mm-hmm. Whether it was left or right, we don't know which side it was.
Either side is not good.
Correct. So, we'll just throw it out there. I mean, I fully expect these guys to ruin my Saturday afternoon by putting Matt Gay on IR. I think that's a possibility. If you're going to miss 4 weeks, that's what you do.
Right.
Because you can't keep bringing Schrader up. You can do it, 3 times?
3 times from the practice squad, that's it.
And then you've got to sign him. So it just makes sense to put Gay on IR 4 weeks. You bring Schrader up 4 weeks. Because keep in mind that when Schrader's on practice squad, he is a free agent.
Right. Anybody can swoop in
I
at
don't
any
know
time.
whether they used to be able to protect 2 or 3 or 4 guys during the week. But at some point, like Monday, he's a free agent. So you can be planning on Schrader being your kicker on the practice squad, and on Monday somebody they don't claim him, they sign him
Because somebody's kicker broke a leg
Right.
or something.
Somebody got
making
hurt.
a tackle.
Maybe
Right.
they had a bad, missed 4 out of 5 or something
There
like
you go.
that.
That
So
too.
again, it's not a little thing. I know some people say, he's just a kicker. No, he's like the 4th highest paid kicker in the league.
Yeah.
And again, they were 6-3 in 1-score games last year. 3 points matter. The 5 kicks in Baltimore, he won the game. He won that game for him. So it's just going to be interesting to see how they approach this. Is IR a possibility? I think it is. And on game day, how much faith does Shane Steichen want to go for 4th and 3 with the ball in Richardson's hands or kick and get points? It's going to be very interesting.
Our intrepid photojournalist at Colts practice right now, Brett Bensley, texts us, chap, that no Downs, no Gay out of
Downs
practice
isn't
today.
going to. We'll get to him. Downs isn't going to play.
You don't think so,
No.
but with Gay in particular, I think you hit the nail on the head when you say, oh, it's just a kicker. It's a throwaway spot that you don't think about, that you don't talk about the entire offseason, mostly because like you have a steady guy.
But that's why they gave him 4 years, $22 million, so that we're not worrying about kicker every year.
And the ironic thing is, it was last offseason we were questioning, why would they spend money on a kicker, for crying out loud? They have all these other places they're trying to fill from that 22 season that was just down the toilet at the end. Like, why are they spending money on this kicker? Well, when you have the guy there, then you just don't have to worry about it. And if you do have a worry at kicker, then it just crops up every week, and it's something that distracts you from other areas of your team that you're trying to get better, honestly. So the Colts now are kind of up in the air at kicker. I will say that I had a hernia when I was younger. I was playing youth soccer. I couldn't play youth soccer for a couple weeks. Playing in the NFL is a lot harder than playing youth soccer. To be fair, there's slightly better and more advanced medical procedures from decades ago, and also available to NFL players. But still, it is a surgery. It is going inside your body. It is sewing something together and having to wait for it to heal up.
And you have to let the surgical part heal.
It's not just put ice on it and let the swelling go down.
Just rub some dirt on it.
And play through the pain. That's not what a hernia surgery is. Like, it needs to heal. So if it is going to be something like 4 to 6 weeks, you're right, chap. I would not be surprised at all if the Colts come out on Saturday afternoon and ruin your Saturday and make it so that
if they're going to do that, do it Friday.
Just do it now, for crying out loud. If you know, come on, make it happen.
It's not like, okay, there's a little bit of gamesmanship when you're talking about Josh Downs, because this is an important cog in your offense. Whether or not your kicker is going to be in there isn't really going to strategically matter that much for Houston.
They're not changing the special teams meetings in Houston.
They're not completely redoing how they're going to defend you or anything like that based on the kicker. So you may as well just go ahead and take the IR on that.
But yeah, Josh Downs was at least present at Wednesday's practice. He was out there running a little bit on the sideline. And then he is not present out there, like I said, today. Josh Downs, certainly a big loss for this Colts offense, chap. We've discussed this a lot throughout the past couple weeks. We don't need to get too far into it, but it would still be a surprise to see him out on the field. But we have to remember that last year there was a kind of similar situation, as Josh Downs was a questionable player to play in Germany against the Patriots in that game. And he only had just a small sample size, like 10 or 15 plays that he was going to be out there for. Ended up making one of the best plays of the game with that diving catch on the scrambling Gardner Minshew play, to be perfectly fair to him. So, like, he showed up to play and he was ready to go. Is it beyond the Colts to do something like that again if they think that they can get him for 10 or 15 plays? Because as we saw in the preseason, he was probably the Colts' most effective wide receiver or weapon on offense.
I just think they have to have a long-term view of this, whatever long-term is in the NFL during a season, 3 to 4 weeks. You don't want to do what you're saying, and then he aggravates it, and then for the next 2 months it's no practice on Wednesdays, rehabbing, maybe a little on Thursday, a little on Friday, then he plays again on Sunday. I think that the prudent thing is to sit him down for 2 games. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Bring him back here when the Bears come to town, and make sure it's really in good shape. And they'll get by without him. They can put A.D. Mitchell. They can put Kylen Granson. They can put Pitt in there. Mm-hmm. So, but it's not the same.
Right.
This guy is a true slot receiver. He's a true guy who can work in the middle like that and run after the catch. The other guys can sort of fill the hole, but it's not the same. So I just would question putting him out there for those 1 or 2 or 5 plays at the risk of really hurt or aggravating that injury.
Let me make at least make the other point on the other side of the coin, and that is the fact that this is against the Texans. And at the end of the season, one game against the Houston Texans could very well be...
We saw that last year.
Exactly. Be the difference between making the playoffs or not. So if indeed he goes out there for 10 or 15 plays, like that might be what ultimately tips the scales. Is this being a division game against the reigning champions, against a team that you expect to very much be in the mix at that point of the year? And if you say, hey, we expect to be in the mix too, then you're going to be fighting them for every possible leg up you can possibly get. I'm saying if this was the New England Patriots week 1, that they were playing that game, I think there would be less of a chance for Josh Downs playing than there is for the Houston Texans playing week 1. Do you agree with that at least? I'm not saying that you have to agree with play him, but you have to agree there's a better chance, since it's the Texans week 1, that they get him out there for 10 or 15 plays rather than if it was just the Patriots week 1.
I guess, but they would have to be as sure as they could that they're not going to have the setback.
The aggravation.
And
I'm
not sure how you do that.
Yeah.
How do you know?
Because no matter what, he mentioned in the locker room today that he ran some routes yesterday. It's not the same. It's not the same running routes against air on a Wednesday practice and when you're out there on Sunday. So, and is it strategically, does it help him to have him dressed on Sunday? And then the Texans have to worry about it, even if he doesn't do much. I don't know. I would now, if he's out there, it's because they are convinced that he is ready. There's a very little chance of aggravating it, because I do think they will need. You're right, Houston. If this was the Bears you're opening up with, I understand that you don't do it, but the fact that it is Houston in these games, that they count double type of thing. But this is a team that you're going to have to beat to win the division. I don't think he plays, but if he plays, it'll be because he's ready and he can make a difference.
Cornerback Dallas Flowers did return to practice on Wednesday. He'd been dealing with a little injury, but is back there to be the Colts' third outside corner, really, right now, behind Juju Brents and Jalen Jones. Our unofficial depth chart still has those or positions for wide receiver 3 between Alec Pierce and Adonai Mitchell. I'd anticipate, just like we saw in the preseason, there's going to be a little bit of both of them from time to time, and one of them might be better in one game than another. It doesn't mean that one guy has taken over, I think, the starting job.
But that's what the narrative is going to be during the season.
Oh yeah, I can't wait.
AD's beat him out. No, it's going to be. I think we're going to see, after 2 months, we're going to see very similar stats, very similar reps, snap counts, and that's not a bad thing. It's not like. Again, I thought Pierce had a better, I won't say much better, but had a better camp than Mitchell did. But that doesn't mean Mitchell was just trash.
No, not at all.
So I think it's a good thing. And it's unfortunate, I guess, although this is how the league works, that a lot of the attention has been on Pierce, and where people are starting to use that bust word with him, which it was so premature. It's just so premature. I still think he's going to be a strong player for him. But these two guys will share the reps behind Pittman.
Nick Cross will start at free safety alongside Julian Blackman at the strong. So Cross went and started the first 2 games of his career, sat for the next 34-ish or something like that, and then started the last 2 last season, and now he's back in the starting lineup. And I think that, again, it's a both-and scenario with Nick Cross. It is both the fact that he did not play well enough to earn the starting job before, and he has improved,
wasn't ready.
And he wasn't ready for the starting job at that point. He was 20 years old as a rookie. He was the youngest player in the NFL or something like that. And I think there was a stat that he was either youngest in the NFL or the youngest starting player in the NFL that year to come out of that training camp. And Chris Ballard has said so in the past, and I don't think that's just like him looking back and judging the present by a better view of what's happened in the past. I really think that's genuine, that Nick Cross was just not ready to go, and there was expectations put on him that he wasn't ready for. So is he athletic? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Can he keep Nico Collins from running 70 yards down the field
the
on
answer
one
to
play?
that one is a definitive
was no. Exactly, no.
To this point,
the
no.
last time the very last time we saw him, the answer is no. So something has had to change over the last offseason. And players get better. Players improve over the offseason. Players get a better understanding of the defense and what's expected of them, sure. But you got to do it, man. You got to actually do it. So as long as Nick Cross...
He's at one of those unforgiving positions.
Completely unforgiving.
You make a mistake, and it may cost you. It probably cost you 6 points.
Absolutely cooked. It's like if you're the left tackle, the same thing. Like you can, if you make a mistake, you're going to get cooked. And there are some positions where you can hide it. Like if you're the middle linebacker and you make a mistake,
maybe it's 5 yards.
Exactly, it becomes a 5-yard gain instead of a 1-yard gain, or instead of a 1-yard loss. But shoot, man, the free safety, there's no room for error if you don't want to give up those big plays. So Cross it's got to be every play being at your best, and you've got to be able to take the heat, and you got to be able to be better than you have been the year before.
And you know that Stroud and the Texans are going to see what's there.
Yep.
And
you got to imagine they've looked at the tape from last year too.
Right. I mean, if nothing else, the first play. So that's what the NFL is all about. It's locating a team's weakness or perceived weakness, and you make that weakness prove that it's not. And if it is, they're going to, it's like if you can run the ball. If JT can run the ball, they're running 30 times and get 188 yards because that's what you do. But look for Houston. We'll get into this later, but the pass rush has got to get him rattled off the spot. He's too good to just sit back there and go with this secondary because the secondary has got so many questions.
And the Colts secondary also, they signed claimed Samuel Womack off of waivers from the San Francisco 49ers to complete that 53-man roster, releasing Darrell Baker Jr. to make room for him. But Womack was with San Francisco. Thought he had a really good camp when we spoke to him on Zoom. But San Francisco just didn't have room for him there.
Wouldn't it be cool if this is Kenny Moore 2.0?
That'd be great. And he's really backing up Kenny right now at the present. Mm-hmm. So that'd be great if this was Kenny Moore 2.0. If either Juju or Jalen kind of struggles to start off the year, if one of them has a bit of a sophomore slump, then we'll see. But that's down the road.
I could see. Let's say that happens, injury or struggles. I maybe and Womack's not been here very long. You put Kenny outside, you put Womack at nickel. Mm-hmm. When you're messing with two positions, which you never like to do, sometimes you get those guys off waivers and you just hit Jack Doyle, for crying out loud.
Yep.
So many guys, and that, of course we're projecting on this kid, but he had that chip where he said, as I was leaving Frisco, he said, I'm never going to get cut again. And that's the attitude you have to have.
Mm-hmm. I'll say this, and this was actually said in the context of Nick Cross, but it can be said in the context of Womack too, talking to Zaire Franklin. Like, there's one point where every player has to prove that they belong, And for Zaire, as a rookie, he had to prove. For Kenny, when Kenny had to get thrown in because literally there was no one else to play quarterback.
They claimed him because they needed a body.
And we were asking, hey, can 43 do it? Back when Kenny Moore wore number 43 out there. And, it was hilarious because, the numbers were as big as him. I always love when small cornerbacks wear numbers in the 40s. I can say this as a small person that I'm allowed to. That is hilarious, just seeing the number as big as the back of the guys that are out there. And that's what Kenny was his rookie year, or maybe even part of his second year. I can't remember where he got 23. But yeah, there was a time that he had to prove that he belonged, and then he started getting contracts that were worthy of his play and his expectations for play, and he keeps playing to or outperforming those contracts here in Indianapolis. So yeah, that's.
I was just going to say that I should also mention that they waived Darrell Baker Jr., as you mentioned, and then he got claimed on waivers by the Titans.
Yes.
So not another guy within the division that maybe we'll see some more of this year.
Darrell Baker Jr. revenge game. Tennessee Titans, Indianapolis Colts, week whatever it is they play.
Maybe we can get a pass interference call against him.
This week, the Houston Texans. A little bit too soon over there, Matt. A little bit too soon. A little bit too soon. This week's opponent is the Houston Texans, a team that, like the Colts, was very much on the fringe of the playoffs till the last week of the season, but then they took advantage of their opportunity at Week 18, beat the Colts, got into the postseason, did some damage in the postseason, and then saw what they had, a young quarterback on a rookie contract, and wanted to strike the iron when it's hot.
Go for it.
Confidence in that rookie quarterback. Confidence that the Colts don't entirely have. You can love Anthony Richardson again in the building. There is more confidence in the Houston building, and there should be, that they have their guy. They have the guy that they know is going to take them, know as well as you can, for the next 10 years or so. And they decide to fill the spots around him, spending on some free agents, which doesn't always work, as we've seen here in Indianapolis, as has been the case in other teams in the NFL in history. I always look back to Vince Young calling the Philadelphia Eagles in 2011 a dream team after they signed Nnamdi Asomugha, Ronnie Brown, Jason Babin, and bringing in Vince Young, and that did not work, so suffice to say. Of course, that's the example that I remember. But anyway, the Houston Texans go out. They sign wide receiver Stephon Diggs. They sign edge rusher Danielle Hunter, running back Joe Mixon, former Colt defensive end Danico Autry, who is suspended for the first 6 games of this season due to violating the NFL's policy.
That happened in late
policy.
July, and somehow I completely glossed over that until I was looking through the matchups this week.
And linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair signed him away from the Tennessee Titans. Yes, so they went out and added dangerous players who have solid histories in the NFL of either being playmakers or stopping other playmakers. Chap, this Houston Texans team is in a position, they think, where they can contend for a Super Bowl in the next couple years, and that's why they made all these offseason additions that they made.
Yeah, one thing, and someone pointed out, it's true, is that they had Daniel Hunter, who the Colts tried to sign.
Yes, very much tried to sign. Reportedly, he was getting more money from the Colts, but more guaranteed money from the Texans.
So, but he replaces, he replaces the guy they lost. Was it Grenard?
Yeah, Jonathan Grenard, who's now with the Vikings, ironically enough.
So they just sort of switched.
A free agency swap, more or less.
But you just like that they've got young players in prime positions. You got the left tackle with Jeremy Tunzel, and then you've got the receivers. Joe Mixon, we'll see. I don't know. I'm probably higher on him.
I watched him play a lot in Cincinnati. I was always impressed with Joe Mixon.
Right. I think he's a volume guy who's going to give you 15 carries and 4 yards a carry. But the passing game, they've just got guys, and they're gonna. That's what I say with the secondary. If you've got a weak link, they're gonna find it, and they're gonna make your third corner. Well, that's Kenny. They're gonna make your 2 outside guys do something. They're gonna make your maybe one of your linebackers, EJ Speed, cover a tight end over the middle. So it's. But I think they got better. I think they did get better. Stephon Diggs. Boy, he's such a wild card. I mean, some reports it was like Buffalo couldn't get rid of him quick enough. Mm-hmm. Maybe Minnesota couldn't get rid of him quick enough when they did. So
the thing is, he had a couple really good years at both of those places before they couldn't get rid of him quick enough.
Right, and maybe that's the approach you take. If you get 2 years and then he's a pain in the butt, we just get rid of him.
And he was a team captain for the Bills.
Amazing.
He's a team captain here
too.
And he's a team captain for the Texans.
Yeah, so we'll see what that means. But no, I like this team. And again, they got the pass rushers. Mm-hmm. Was it Will Anderson? What they had to...
Well, man, and nobody talks about Will Anderson. At least when you talk about the Texans, because you're talking about all these other guys that they brought in.
Yeah, he's still there.
And you're talking about C.J. Stroud, and Will Anderson. They traded up and they paid a quarterback's ransom to go get him.
Defensive Rookie of the Year.
He was pretty good.
Did he missed some time early, right?
Yes,
he missed some time, but that's what they've got. Again, it's great to have solid rosters, top to bottom, 53 and all that. But, man, you have to have difference makers at the certain positions. You need, the quarterback, obviously, the receiver, the way it is now. But left tackle, we were talking in the press room today, the 3 prime positions in my mind are quarterback, left tackle, and pass rush. And you can flip pass rush and left tackle if you want. If you have those guys, and then you have that elite receiver, and we're seeing these guys getting paid, was it $30-35 million?
Yeah, man.
Which is amazing.
Bonkers.
All of a sudden, Michael Pittman's 23.4.
It's a bargain.
It's a bargain. Good for him. But so I just like the way this Houston team is built. Like I said, with the narrative of change, had the Colts won in Week 18. Probably not. I still think these two teams would be who they are. Again, because of the great unknown with Anthony Richardson. I mentioned in the story today, and we've mentioned it before, but he will be the youngest starting quarterback for the second year in a row.
Woohoo!
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So much is tied. I think this is the best roster they've had since Andrew Luck walked away. But if the quarterback isn't the right guy, it doesn't matter.
It brought back all your starters from last year's team, an offense that was top 10 in the league in scoring, a defense that was 28th in the league in scoring.
Still boggles my mind on the scoring.
Yes, exactly. I don't know how they were able to do it.
I believe in Shane Steichen is the only way
they had that stretch of X number of games with like 20 points.
Yeah.
It was like 13 games over the last year.
Yep.
Amazing.
Made no sense. Like, it doesn't make any common practical sense that's
right.
But that was a well-coached football team. It makes all the difference in the world. Plus, it's not like they didn't have any talent, and it's not like Gardner Minshew was garbage, but he's just a step below what they we're expecting to have behind under center.
And the two games against the Texans last year, they did go very much differently. In Houston, the Colts came out gangbusters, man. And it was Anthony Richardson scoring on the first two drives. It was a 10-play, 75-yard drive, boom, 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 right down the field. He throws for 50 yards, and then the next play, like the Houston Texans give it away, and the Colts take over. Boom, Richardson runs for another touchdown. He's run for 35 yards in two touchdown runs there, and like I said, thrown for 50 yards, and the Colts are up 14-0 before you need a second beer, for crying out loud. So
and then the second touchdown, he gets a concussion.
Yes, exactly. And then the next two drives, he's obviously out there not living up to what he had done the first couple drives and takes him out.
He's self-reported.
He did.
I mean, because he's like I don't know what's going on out there.
I just remember the camera's cutting to the sidelines, and he's like, doing his neck and kind of like shaking his head. It's like, I don't think he's supposed to be doing that.
Doesn't look so right. But then Gardner Minshew came in, and he did pretty darn well too. They won that game. What was it, 31-20? I think was the final score in that game. And
Houston got.
To be fair, Houston was preparing for Anthony Richardson all week, and Gardner Minshew's a different quarterback.
It's hard to believe they were preparing for Richardson.
Exactly.
Because he just toasted him.
Exactly.
Like, this guy can run, really?
He looked next level in that early part of that game.
You were thinking, what's this game going to be like? Because, again, I think what's so impressive about Steichen is that he will, if he's got a game plan and it works, he'll stick with it. But if all of a sudden something's not working and then this is working, the last game of the year with Houston, Taylor runs 30 times. You just don't do that very often, but when it's working in that situation, you do it. And I'd like to have seen in that Houston game, the first one, what would have happened. I mean, again, they were so unprepared to deal with Richardson running the football. Would he have had one of those games that a Justin Thiels or somebody has? But that's why we talk about the uncertainty. I asked Steichen last week, I think it was, how much of your offense did you show during the preseason? And he said, not much.
Yeah, he smirked at you.
Not much. And we knew that. So, but it's going to be really curious. But we saw sort of what they want to do in the first quarter of the first Houston game, and it's really kind of intriguing what might be.
You look back on everything Anthony Richardson did last year, and you look at the Rams game, and the comeback was impressive. You look at certain plays here and there throws that were impressive. But if you look for like an extended, and I say extended period of time in quotes, it's that full drive, and then, of course, the first run on the very next play of what this Colts offense can be. That was the snapshot, I think, in my mind, of what at least Colts fans this year hope to see.
And that was without Taylor.
That's right. That was Zach Moss was still the running back then.
Remember, we've seen two snaps together. One handoff between Taylor and Richardson, and that's it.
And just look at the difference. I mean, Zach Moss had a great season for the Colts last year, but just look at the difference in his effectiveness from when Richardson was in the lineup to when they knew they could load up against him because Minshew was back there. Because it was a significant difference.
Definitely a difference. And there was a big difference between these two games as well on the when the Colts defense was on the field. And that was in the first game against the Texans. They were missing. Well, they got after it because the Texans were missing several players on their offensive line. It was multiple players on the offensive line that were out, including left tackle Laramie Tunsil, who is an all-pro type level
great player
left tackle. So if the Colts want to get 6 sacks on C.J. Stroud like they did in Game 1 instead of 2 sacks,
I think 18 pressures too.
I mean, 18 pressures too.
He was under siege that whole game.
Yes, he was. It was. Like, that was the point of the year. I remember we were talking about Kwity Paye at the start of the year because he had, like, multiple sacks in a couple different games. Right. But there were also a couple different, like, backup left tackles that he was doing work against, too, which that's what you're supposed to do, you know? You get those sacks.
If you get a backup tackle, you abuse
you get your sacks, and he did. But that was the time of the year, or that was the game specifically that, like, C.J. Stroud did not look good. At the end of the day, he threw for 348 yards, and I couldn't have told you how he got that much until the fourth quarter for sure.
Right.
When he finally started going through the Colts defense, when the Colts defense, to be fair, was just giving him 15 yards.
Take your yards.
They were playing clock.
And let that clock run out. So if there's any chance to beat the Texans, you've got to get after it. You've got to get after the quarterback because, A, C.J. Stroud is good. We'll leave it at that. And B, you have a young secondary back there that you don't want to just leave for 3-4 seconds and let any quarterback, any NFL-level quarterback, sit back there and try to pick you apart one read by one read at a time.
Well, how many times we see last year when the miscommunication was just such a glaring problem.
Uh-huh.
And that's where a Kenny Moore and a Nick Cross they've got to be on point. You can't have uncertainty, and they've talked about with Blackman, Julian Blackman, and Nick Cross, they might bounce back and forth, free and strong. I don't think that's really. You're doing that because you have to, not because you want to.
Right.
So again, we're going to be there's going to be this Nick Cross watch, almost more so than an Alec Pierce watch, because there's so much focus. The team brought this up. The team has made this an issue throughout training camp by not resolving it and taking this past the third game on, and all of a sudden now, Nick Cross had the most consistent, off-season and preseason. What's that mean? I mean, does that mean he was better than the guys that didn't play well? I don't know.
I had to laugh. I was reading one of the analysis. I think it was out of the Indy Star. I could be mistaken, but they were talking about how important the safeties are in Gus Bradley's defense. And they named, Cam Chancellor and all the great ones that they had over the years for him when he was in Seattle. And then you just think about what the Colts have done with the safety position during training camp. And, maybe we're going to mix him around. We're going to interchange him. He's going to play free and he's going to play strong. And I'm just like, what is going on here?
You do that because you have to, not because you want to.
Yes. No, nobody wants that.
That's what we just – in December, either Chris Ballard is going to say, see, we knew what we were doing. Mm-hmm. Or we're going to say –
or be like,
what in the heck?
We tried to tell you.
We're a bunch of – we can be moronic sometimes, but we could see you needed help at safety, at corner.
And it's going to be very hard to find a middle ground between those two.
There can't be a middle ground because of what happens when it doesn't work.
Well, you can't talk about week one, the Indianapolis Colts regular season, without talking about –
we're going to do it, aren't we?
The streak, ladies and gentlemen. It is not a losing streak, mind you.
No, 20-20 in Houston.
No. Exactly, from 2022
which was
season.
Sort of amazing.
It was quite remarkable. But the last time the Indianapolis Colts won a season opener was 2013. Of course, names like Andrew Luck on that roster. Reggie Wayne was on that roster. He is in the building now, of course. LaRon Landry, Antoine Bethea, still back there at safety.
Leading rusher was...
It'd be nice to have an Antoine Bethea at safety
Ballard.
right now.
Yep.
Vic Ballard was the leading rusher. Jarrell Freeman, the CFL star, come to Indianapolis. Robert Mathis on that roster still.
Chuck
Pagano, naturally. All those players. Maybe Dante Moncrief was on that team. That's the logical reaction to listening to that. But the winless streak started in 2014 when they lost to the Peyton Manning-led Broncos in week one of that year. They've had games that are at home. They have lost them. They have games that are away. They've lost them. They've had games against NFC teams. They've lost them. They've had games against AFC teams. They've lost them. There have been blowouts. There have been close games. And, as Matt so astutely mentions, one tie to get us all the way to here in the year of our Lord, 2024. And the Indianapolis Colts have not won their season opener since 2013. It's gone from GMs to GMs. It's gone from coaches to coaches.
Quarterbacks
to quarterbacks. What can stop
the
Indianapolis Colts, good heavens, losing streak on opening day? Mike Chappell.
Schrader hitting a 48-yard field goal as the time expired.
Go Irish.
It's people in Vegas tell you bet that streaks continue, because you go broke if you're betting that a streak ends.
Right.
I don't know. I was going to joke in the locker room. I hung around today. I love to stand and talk to Ryan Kelly.
He's the best.
He is. We were talking classic rock bands and Journey and Kansas and all this, and then we were talking other stuff. But he's the common denominator. He and Luke Rhodes.
There you go.
They've been the guy that's
since
been
2016.
Right, since 16. They've been the guys. So, but yeah, it's you always try to find the common denominator, and they're real. Other than the fact that the Colts were involved, because things change and the quarterbacks change, and I don't know why Scott Tolzien's name popped into my mind.
Well, maybe because the throw that he made to the sideline is still in midair.
First pass.
First
pass.
Picked off by whoever it was.
And he had two. He threw two picks.
He did, yes, in that game. And then Jacoby Brissett, who had been with the team for 2 minutes, came in the fourth quarter.
Yep, because it had to, because Folzine threw 2 pick sixes.
So that was 40-something to...
to 10 maybe.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Did they get to 10?
I thought they did. I thought
Maybe
they got
they
to
did.
10. I thought they got double digits.
But it just... That's why I say there's so much... We'll get to the picks later on in about 20 minutes. And as much as I want to pick these guys, it's what was it?
46 to
9.
46
no,
to
they
9.
fell just short of double digits.
So it's and I remember maybe the one that they should have won against Cincinnati. Was it Cincinnati? No, Detroit. They scored late against with Andrew Luck with like 50 seconds to play, 30 seconds.
Yeah, it was. I think it was under 50 seconds.
And the Lions just went right down and
Matthew Stafford
kicked field goal and
let him right
game's
down.
over. So yeah, it's and players hate to hear it because most of the players said
They haven't been here, so they're like, that's not us.
It's not me. With Richardson, he was here for last year, but there's something there. They don't play well. It's so similar to Jacksonville. It just is, and it's something until you make it nothing, and you make it nothing by winning an opener.
So another one of the close ones was against the Bengals. Jack Doyle was stretching for a first down to get a little extra yardage, fumbled the ball, got returned for a touchdown.
And not only did you fumble, it's returned like 90 yards or 80 yards by a safety or whatever.
On what would have been if they had scored the game-winning drive.
So it's just like, and again, it's an issue until you make it not an issue. Jacksonville will be an issue until you go down there.
Until I'm fired.
Yep.
It will be an issue.
Right.
Dave's been waived this week.
Exactly. Well, linebacker Zaire Franklin is tackling hunger in central
Good for
Indiana.
him. This is a good thing.
He's going to donate $44 to the Midwest Food Bank for each tackle he makes this season, and Coca-Cola is planning to match his donation. Last season, the Syracuse product, thank you, Matt, for including that in our game notes here, set a franchise record with 179 tackles. If he were to match it, that would be $15,752 donation given in the dollar-for-dollar match right there. So,
yes. He said maybe I'll go broke.
He said he wants to go broke, yeah.
Well, that's not going to
exactly,
happen because he got a really nice contract, but I understand what he's saying.
Yes.
And this is one of those, again, a lot of guys do things. Zaire he personifies what they want in that locker room. Yes, a top-line player, yes, but he just does things the right way. He's always making a difference in the community, whether it's this or he's got his own foundation that he I can't remember.
Chalice's Angels?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's the one.
And that's what you want. You want these players that when you've got a platform, use it, and a lot of these guys do. Zaire is near the top of the list.
I would concur on every level, and not just because he's from Philly and went to Syracuse.
Has nothing to do with it.
Well, that's just adds to it for me. But even without those things,
Zaire's a good dude.
A+ guy in the locker room, and easily one of the best tackling linebackers in the NFL, as evidenced by his past couple seasons. And the 44 is obviously his number. It's also a special number in Syracuse history that no one else here talks about or cares about. But that's the Jim Brown number, the Floyd Little number, the Ernie Davis number that matters at that program very much. So very happy to see Zaire with the success that he's had, and hopefully he has a ton more this year.
Do they still wear that at Syracuse, or is it like you have somebody that is special and gets that?
So it's not retired officially. But it's not given out freely either.
Okay.
So, like, there was a guy a couple years ago that the fans wanted him to get the number, but the program never gave it to him. At least there was some group of fans wanted him to have the number. So there was some kind of online push to get it, but he was never given it. So it takes a lot for someone. I don't know when the last person was to have it, but I mean, since then people have had it. Like, his name is like Rob Conrad, I think, in the 90s, I want to say, wore the number 44. But anyway.
It's kind of a sacred number to the program.
Yes, very much so.
Not familiar with the vagaries of the Syracuse football tradition.
The lore of Syracuse football, indeed. Kylen Granson plans to wear the Guardian cap during NFL games this season. Players can wear these in the regular season for the first time this season. It's a soft shell padded cover designed to reduce the impact of collisions and thus reduce the risk of concussion. A few Colts, like Jonathan Taylor, wore them in the preseason, but Granson said he will don it helmet in the regular season. Taylor also today said that he is not going to wear it.
Okay.
In the
Too small of a sample size, you said.
That's his alleged reason that he gives us, at least, that is too small a sample size. And Granson said he will. And Granson talking to, I don't know how many people he was talking to at the time, but I think it was the Athletics' James Boyd. I think it was him.
It sounds about
that
right.
That tweeted out, like, the quote was that at one point people thought seatbelts were stupid,
right.
and now look at us. You know, back when folks like Mike Chappell were running around kindergarten,
right.
I'll bet you were just bouncing around the back seats of the
right.
station wagon without or the first time you saw a seatbelt was like, what's this thing?
And do I really have to wear it?
Yeah, exactly. And I guess you do. I don't mean to age you, but I figured that would be a...
Well, and again, his point is that anything, whether it's negligible, anything that might help protect his health,
right.
he's all for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talked to Zaire Franklin, and he will not be wearing the Guardian. And we kept trying to ask him why. And I really think it boils down to the fact that he just doesn't think it looks good.
He thinks, and I mean, honestly, we saw it during the preseason. It almost looks like a cartoon helmet.
It does.
On the guys because they have a covering on the cap that simulates the Colts helmet.
Well, Taylor mentioned, he said, you're just not sure that can a guy, grab it and him either tackle you or impede your movement with that. So he just said, again, he only had, what do you have, 7 or 8 carries?
So it would be a small sample size because you didn't play at all in the preseason.
Right. Well, so that's on you.
Yeah.
But these players wear these throughout practice, I'm guessing throughout the season, because the league is trying to formulate, a deep bit of research on does it work, does it matter, and good for them.
Yeah. In order to find out, you got to have data, and in order for it to have the data, players have got to wear them in game situations.
Well, and we'll go down the little dark rabbit hole. This is a league that is so, looking for player safety, and they're playing on Friday night, and they're going to play 18 games, and so just one or the other. It's hard to have both, and they're trying to legislate or work in player safety, which I understand, the kickoff rule and all that, but this is a violent collision sport, and stuff's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. Looking good matters, by the way. Look good, feel good, do good, I believe was Jerry Rice. And maybe even other people who've said that, but I know Jerry Rice was big on that.
Jerry Rice would not wear it.
I've talked about this before, but growing up and having Jerry Rice being one of the first people that I remember watching play football, I was blown away game after game that you would see Jerry Rice just running free in the secondary, like 5 yards between him and the nearest defender. Was he ever covered?
I don't think he ever ran a blistering 40 time.
No.
But, it's like they asked Marvin Harrison, how fast are you? He said, well, fast enough that nobody catches me.
Right. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. Another Syracuse legend, Marvin Harrison, as well. So.
Why did I do that?
You brought it up.
I set it up.
You set it up.
You did it. Yes,
Dave,
you did.
okay,
Set it up on the tee.
Then I'll do it again. One more Syracuse connection.
Yeah. Dwight Freeney.
Dwight Freeney gets his Hall of Fame ring
Yes.
Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Let's go. Right. I meant to mention that. I forgot.
Now, he's getting that as a Colt, not as a Syracuse product.
That's true. He is actually going to be honored at Syracuse this year, too.
Is he really?
Yes, he's going back there for a game as well. So he can relive the time that he had 4 sacks against Mike Vick in one game, probably, where he really burst onto the national scene. Like, oh, this guy's probably a first-round pick there, isn't he? Yeah.
I mean, if you can catch Vick.
To be fair, like that left tackle at Virginia Tech didn't know what hit him. Like I was literally watching the highlights of it the other day because I saw it on my Twitter timeline. I was just like, oh boy, that guy's not living up to the standard here. That is not going to work well for him. But anyway, rule changes for 2024. We talked about the kickoff rule. We've seen a couple of them. No more surprise onside kicks. If teams are successful on one of their 2 challenges, they'll earn a third. That old rule was that both challenges had to be successful. So that's a significant change, that if a team just gets 1 challenge, they can get another one sometime down the road. Now it's reviewable that quarterback down by contact out of bounds when he's throwing a pass. It's reviewable whether the game clock expired before a snap. And certain elements of roughing the passer and intentional grounding. Also, hip drop tackles, are a 15-yard penalty. And that's something that had been kind of a talker over the past year or so that they were trying to get changed. So we're seeing a couple of different changes in terms of in terms of the game. Of course, none of them is bigger than the kickoff rule. We'll see which team can figure it out and take advantage of it, like we've said throughout this offseason. Colts seem to do relatively well with it in the preseason. Anthony Gould looked capable back there. It'll be interesting to see what they do if they're getting a kickoff in the fourth quarter and you need to return it.
Right. Do you set up some sort of...
Do you put Jonathan Taylor back there?
Yeah.
You know, because it's kind of like a run play. Do you put Josh Downs back there when he's healthy? Whatever. If it's not just Anthony Gould on a daily basis. But, I mean, if Gould proves to be one of the best in the league, like if he scores a touchdown at some point early in the year, then you probably just leave him back there. And
keep him back there, run him back. Yeah.
But other teams might do that.
If you're kicking off, though, I don't know what the average start time or start spot was, 26, 27-yard line, I think it is, during preseason. Why not just kick it to the end zone and get the ball at the 30? Mm-hmm. You know, unless you really believe you can pin somebody at the 20, the 18. So I'm curious to see, because I know touchbacks were really, really down during preseason. They were getting returns,
right?
Which is what they want.
Everybody was trying to figure it out at that point, for sure. So that's the time to work on it.
Do you just say, the heck with it, kick it through the end zone, and they'll give them to it at the 30? Because is there a difference between the 30 and the 26? I don't know.
That will be certainly something that has the real potential to change. Like you said, during the preseason, there were not that many touchbacks because teams were trying to figure out if they had an advantage there. Right. Now you have a little bit more data, and you can say, let's just kick it out of the end zone. I think that some teams will absolutely do that, no question. So,
but like you said, you want to have Josh Downs or Anthony Gould sort of be that weapon. Well, but if the other team has the same approach, with kicking it through I'm curious how that works.
Yep. The NFL kicks off tonight as we tape this podcast, Thursday, with Ravens visiting the Chiefs. Taylor Swift reported to be in attendance, so you guys better hammer
somebody's talking that she's drawing up plays for him.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Hammer the over for Travis Kelce. Receptions and yards and touchdowns, guys. Let's go. Matt's exhausted and exasperated.
I don't have anything against Taylor Swift. It was like it was the thing in football last year, and we get to do it over again.
Be the thing again.
Didn't we already do this?
Exactly.
No, we didn't. It's coming back. Week 1, the Colts host the Houston Texans Sunday, 1 p.m. Broadcast locally here in Central Indiana on CBS 4. The betting line opened with the Houston Texans being a 1.5-point favorite. It has since moved very much in favor of the Texans, who are now a 3 or 2.5-point favorite over the Colts. And in terms of the total opened at 47.5 over under, and now it appears to be 48.5 in most places. So it has moved toward the Colts. I mean, it has moved toward the Texans. It has moved toward the over. As always, we give our game predictions here on the Colts Blue Zone podcast. And we can even give some season predictions here, since this is indeed the first game of the season. Give you an idea of what we think is in store. I'll start, and then Matt goes, and then Chap will wrap us up. For this game against the Texans, I can't bring myself to pick the Colts because it's basically the same team they had last year, except for Anthony Richardson, to be fair, which is a big difference at quarterback. But it's the same defense they're trotting out there against a better Texans offense that scored 30-plus points against them. So I don't see why I would pick the Texans to score less than 30 points. Latu is a difference maker. You hope he's a difference maker, but how many times is he going to be on the field to make a difference? And how many times is he going to be going against Laramie Tunsil? In my perspective, it's been a whole offseason that the Colts, they're trying to get better as a team within. The Texans went out, looked elsewhere for guys who have had success in the league, and they're trying to bring all that to add to the success that they already had. So I lean toward the Texans in this matchup. I think I said 31-28, and I'll stick with that because I still think this offense is going to be pretty dangerous when they get going and when they're in sync. I think Shane Steichen's a really good offensive coach, so I think they're going to score points. But when you bring back all 11 starters from a defense that was 28th in the NFL in points allowed last year, I just think it's a decision that's questionable. And is that to say that I'm right and the Colts are wrong? No, they get paid a whole lot of money to be right. So we'll see at the end of the year if I'm right or if they're right. But I just think this defense is going to struggle at times because we saw it struggle last year. We saw this defense struggle last year. to stop teams from scoring. So that's my pick for the game. Texans 31-28 for the season. I think that they are once again. I think the floor is pretty high because a lot of these players again are back from last year. It was a team that was 9-8 last year, and I definitely think they can go 9-8 again this year. But I just keep going back to what people in the locker room are saying about Anthony Richardson, and they keep talking about riding the ups and downs and riding the waves. And I keep telling myself that the best teams in the league don't ride the waves. Like, they're more consistent. They really are. Like, the downs are not that far down. The highs are not that high. They're much more of you know what they're getting week in and week out. And I don't know what Anthony Richardson is going to be week in and week out. I can tell you what he's going to be kind of generally, but it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a fun watch. But I think that there are going to be times when he really has to pull himself out of of the depths of a poor performance, and I don't know if he can do that yet. I think there are going to be times where he has to win the game with his arm because teams are loading the box, and I don't know if he could do that yet. If the Colts can run, I think they're going to be a really good team. Like, I think that they could, if they are an efficient running team, they're going to win a lot of games when they can run the ball well. But there are going to be teams that just keep them from running the ball well. There just are. So I think they're about an 8-9 team this year. I wouldn't be surprised if they take a step back and they don't make the playoffs again. I think Jacksonville is going to be better. I think the Texans are going to be better. The Titans are going to be better than they were last year. I don't know if they're going to be better than the Colts. But that's my view of this team, and those are kind of the reasons behind it. So, Matt, why don't you go next, and Chap can wrap us up.
I'm going to stick because I am desperate not to have to write the same article about the Colts winning streak next year. So I am desperate for them to get a win in Week 1. I'm going to say 28-24. 200 yards for Anthony Richardson in the air, 75 on the ground. So I think they'll pull this off. I think the defense will play a little bit better than we expect. I think they will be able to get some pressure this time on Stroud. I don't think that's going to be the constant thing every game this year, but I think they'll have it going here in Week 1. On the season, I can't say the Colts is much more than a kind of a 500 team like you, but I am going to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt there. They were 9-8. They didn't have their guy at QB. They got their guy at QB now. I'm going to go with a 10-7 prediction on the season. They'll probably maybe squeak into one of the playoff spots.
Chap.
I've got 30-27 Colts, and this is one where I'm going to kind of go out on a limb for me because I'm trying to talk myself into the fact that they should be better, and if they're going to be better, it starts here. Yes, you got the streak of non-wins and all that. I understand that, but I go back and look at that game in Week 18, and it's hard. You get past the 75-yard touchdown. Other than the gunshot, how do you like to play, Mrs. Lincoln? but they did keep Stroud to like 180 yards after that throwing, and the Texans only had 300 and some yards, and they only scored 21 points offensively. So I've talked myself into the Colts 30-27 because I think that could be a springboard. I've got looking at 10-7. I talked to my grandson at lunch the other day. He's got 13-4.
Ooh,
so
let's go.
That's I try to tell him that
good optimism.
You're wrong, but I do think this team. The defense scares me. The secondary scares me. I love the front seven. I really love the front seven, but so much you can only do so much, and you have to cover.
Yeah, they have to play above. As good as the front seven are,
right,
they have to play above their head in order to give that secondary a chance.
I do think this offense has got a chance. I like the offensive line. Stay healthy because I don't like the backup tackle situation with Freeland or the rookie
Gonzalez.
I'll let you.
That guy.
I'll type it right.
Yeah, exactly.
And like I said, they came within a couple of plays of winning the division last year without Richardson, and with Taylor missing a ton. Mm-hmm. So I do think Pittman's going to get his as he always does, and these new receivers. So 10-7 and 30-27 because I'm tired of reading Matt's opening day stories. Now I don't know why you just wouldn't have a get save and then you just add another graph.
I pretty much
if they lose.
That's pretty much what I did. I just wanted a different URL.
So I think there's a chance these guys are good, but this is my one that, okay, guys, I'm giving you this one. I'm going to go out on a limb. Now, if you lose this one, then we'll recalibrate the depending on how you lose, recalibrate my optimism.
Say then we'll be on the 1-16 train after that.
You can't win them all, and you can't lose them all, depending on the first game.
I really think that there are going to be some really high highs with this Colts team this year. To be fair and clarify kind of what I said earlier, I think Richardson's going to do some great things. There are going to be some times when he and Taylor look completely unbeatable, and hopefully Latu lives up to the expectations that he is.
I've seen some betting things where he's one of the high front runners for defensive rookie of the year.
I wouldn't be surprised.
They're going to put this kid in position to make plays.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they are. And
this isn't going to be Aiden Hutchinson, who plays all the time,
right?
Or a couple Tavon Walker,
Walker
with the Jaguars. They're going to whatever it's going to. At the end of the season, I think Tyquan Lewis has more snaps, and Latu has more impact plays.
Yeah.
So, but that's what you want. He's in a perfect situation. I compared it to again Dwight Freeney, where he didn't start till week 9. Mm-hmm. And then he just went off.
Yep.
We should not get wrapped up in Latu's starts. It's what he does. What Taylor said today. It's not the number of reps. It's what you
making the reps count. I don't count the reps. I make the reps count. That is your vintage Jonathan Taylor quote.
Thank you very much, JT.
It was after a Mike Chappell question, too, so thank you, you knew exactly where you were going with the question. I did, too, because I chuckled. I was on the other side of the scrum there on Taylor, and I saw you ask the question. I was like,
because
that chap.
I asked Jim Bob about how do you balance when you got this guy who can just blow a game open. They're gonna ride this. Mm-hmm. They're gonna ride JT as hard and as long as they can.
Yep, and they probably should if they want to be successful. At least
that's what you do when you got great players. That's what you do.
You can follow us on Twitter at Colts Blue Zone. Mike Chappell is at mchappell51. Matt Adams is at Statomatty. I'm Dave Griffiths at DaveG_sports. Once again, if you're watching in Central Indiana, Colts Texans is on this Sunday at 1 o'clock, broadcast on CBS 4. Hope you tune in. We'll be back next week to break it all down, look ahead to week 2. So thank you for listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast.